going to be about a Sony. Not just any Sony. This is in particular about a unit, serial number 11221, which is a really low serial number if you understand how Sony serial numbers worked. One, typically, the first digit was typically the factory that it was manufactured in. So this would make this number 1221, which is a very low number. So there you have it. The cat's out of the bag. An SL7200 video cassette recorder. So what exactly is this beast? Check out the inputs and the outputs. VHF in, UHF in, VHF out, audio and video out. This is an ancient VCR. This is such an early model, and the shielding has been lost off of the modulator, but it came preset on channel 3, not a channel 3 or 4 switchable. No, this one here you actually unplug the modulator, and it was the same modulator that the SL7300 uses. It's the same plug-in one, but this one's preset on channel 3. The other one was a channel 3 or 4 switchable, and that was why they had the plug-in modulators. Was there was different modulators that you could get. You could get a channel 3 modulator, a channel 4 modulator, or a 3/4 switchable, and I believe there was also a channel 2 and a channel 5 and a channel 6. So if you were in areas that had broadcast stations, you could order a modulator that was on an unused channel, and you could order a modulator on any of the low channels. 2, 3, 4, I think 5 was also available. But anyway, let's take a look at this thing. I know the excitement is building now. What have I got here? Check this out. It's got a crank VHF and UHF tuner, 83 channel tuner at that, because this was manufactured long before the FCC started eating away at the TV band to add cellular services. The first chunk of channels they took away was channel 70 to 83, which was for the first 800 megahertz analog cellular band. And then the latest chewing away of the TV band has been channel 60 to 70. So the TV band now officially ends at UHF channel 59. And that was taken away for the 700 megahertz spectrum. But this is an old Betamax, and I wish this unit was in better shape than it is, but unfortunately this one's got some damage. Now this machine was given to me a few years back. The owner of it just wanted rid of it. It doesn't work as far as I know, so we're going to try and fix it. It's a Beta 1 only deck, fully mechanical. That part works, but the lid had something dropped on it. That happened before I got it, so unfortunately that part of it's damaged. But everything else, I think, and the memory physical switch for the memory counter has been damaged. But I think everything else is intact on this unit. Get the top off this thing. See, this is one of the reasons why I looked at the SL0340 first, is I wanted to make a Beta 1 playback tape, because this machine has got a lot of hours on it. I don't believe this one works, but I need a tape that's recorded in standard Beta 1 in order to test this thing out. If we have a playback tape that works, it's a good chance I can get the recording portion of it working too. But as far as I know, this machine doesn't work, so I don't know what the state of it is. I haven't plugged this thing in forever, so I guess the first thing we'll do is we'll power it up and see if it'll actually load a tape. So we'll get the good old 3-prong cord that somebody has made into a 2-prong before my acquisition of it. That was also something that was very common. 3-prong devices. People would cut the 3rd prong off, because what would happen is if the house ground was different than the cable TV ground, which it usually was, you ended up with hum bars, which were bars drifting through the picture, dark bars drifting through the picture. So of course the fix to that was to remove the ground from the chassis, because what was happening was the chassis ground, which was grounded to the house ground, was at a different potential than the ground on the incoming antenna or the incoming cable, and it was causing a current to flow between the cable or antenna ground and the house ground, which was causing noticeable picture or hum bars to roll through the picture. So that was quite a common thing that people would do. First thing I want to do on this thing before going any further is I want to make sure that the actual belts are good. So let's just turn the drum here, and I want to see that the motor, I want to see that the drum spins. I also want to see that the capstan shaft turns, because it's all belt driven on this thing. So here's the capstan shaft here. If I put my finger against that and turn the drum or main motor, I can in fact feel that the capstan shaft, as you can see, is turning my finger. It's moving my finger, so the capstan shaft is working, which is a good sign. That means that the belts on that part of the machine are working. I've got power to the machine now. I can see that the channel number is illuminated. So let's just see if it will load a tape. Okay, so it's having trouble loading. So right now I can see that one of the loading belts is worn. But we'll get it into the loaded position and just see whether the tape will rewind and fast forward. Looks like it's going to rewind. Looks like it's going to fast forward. Aha! When I go to put it into play, it's not going into play. Why is that? Aha! I already know what's going on here. Let's show you why it's not even going to even attempt to go into play until I take it apart and probably replace a belt or so in it. Like my other Betamaxes, there's a couple things that, first of all, that are wrong here that I can see right from the get-go. One is, well, we take a look a little further over on the drum here, we will see that the tape has not threaded to the guide that pulls the tape out and locks it in place behind the full erase head here has not happened. So our wrap is not complete. Our tape is supposed to be pulled all the way around 180 degrees over to here, and as you can see, our tape is just kind of drifting out across and onto the drum. But the second problem that we've got here is we have a tape take-up slack problem. There's a little lever down here, you can see me moving. That is our tape slack detector, and it activates a little switch that stops the mechanism, just like that on the SL7300 had that little mechanical switch that would, if there was tape slack, it would trigger the solenoid to stop it. Well, this one works exactly the same. If I press play, watch what happens. You're going to see the tape is going to go slack here, and it's going to stop. See that? And now it won't let me do anything. If I pull that lever back by hand, sure, it's going to work, but we're going to have tape spilling all over the inside of the machine, which is not going to be good. So we have a couple problems here to start with. One, we have no take-up, which is probably just a belt. But secondly, the tape hasn't been pulled out. There's a guide that's sticking. Oh, there it is. I just kind of moved it, and this guide is now dropped into place. Not fully into place, but it's dropped into place, and probably if I press play, this guide will kick into its full position, which it does. So that guide post here is a little bit sticky. It's going to be on the bearing down here. But let's get the bottom off this thing first of all and see what's going on with the take-up. It's more than likely a belt that's worn. Let's see if eject works or whether it's going to eat my tape. And it's going to eat my tape. I can tell that right now because there's no attempt to take up the tape. So I'm going to leave the tape loaded. Let's take the bottom off this thing and take a look at the mechanical workings. We're going to need at least 2 belts and probably a lot more than that. But let's get the bottom off it first and just take a look at what's going on. And if you want to talk about a brute, this machine weighs at least 40 pounds, maybe more. This thing is a beast, and you'll see why as I remove the bottom cover. which also weighs about 10 pounds. Why do airplanes always have to disturb me? Look at the size of the cover on this thing. It's all metal. So here's the main board. Now usually these boards are designed so that they can be swung out of the way. I'm not familiar with this one, so let's just remove some screws here. We'll turn off the power. And there's the base of the unit. Let's take a look at the belts. So here is the loading belt that's obviously one of the ones that's slipping. Let's just remove this one. And again, very easy to remove this because these things were designed for ease of service. I'm just going to go and see whether I've got one that's anywhere close to this size. I don't even care if it's a new belt as long as it's one that will provide me a little bit of torque. I did find a used belt that's a little bit smaller, so hopefully this one will do the job. To say I'm not really into spending any money on an obsolete machine, and I'm going to catch hell from someone that's going to tell me that it's not an obsolete machine because I just got into a big debate with a viewer about the obsolescence of mini disc. I guess to each his own, but Betamax is an obsolete format. It has been an obsolete format for many years, and yes, I understand there are still some people out there that love the format and like to keep these machines working. I happen to be one of them. I like to keep these machines working just for the nostalgia. I like the old machines just because of how they worked, right? The simplicity and so forth, and just the build quality of. I mean, this is all metal. Look at this chassis; it's beautiful. I mean, this thing is just unbelievable. Here's the main motor. The main motor drives the drum. You got a flywheel on the bottom of the drum, and here's our shaded pole type motor, but it's only a half of a motor, only one half of the core. I'll show you. I'll lower the camera down so you can see the actual shaded pole rotor. But that's used as a brake. So as the drum is spinning with a synchronous AC motor, this shaded pole motor, which is fed a DC feedback voltage from the servo, slows down and causes the belt to slip slightly for tracking. You can let it speed up or slow it down and get your phase for your heads exact that way. Once the system is synchronized, there's very, very little current that actually will flow through this coil. Because once your heads are in phase, your AC induction motor is locked to the incoming AC frequency, which will be very close. For black and white, you wouldn't even need this because it could just be synchronized to the incoming AC line. And once you got in lock, you could let the thing free run, and as long as it was a 1-to-1 ratio, the unit would never go out of phase, because on the black and white video standard it was 60 fields per second, which was, or 30 frames, which was the same speed, 1800 RPM, that the motor would spin. But on color, it's not. It's 29.97 frames or 59.97 fields. They reduced the vertical scanning rate slightly to allow proper interleaving of the chroma signal with the luminance. So that requires the drum to actually run slightly slower. So there's always a little bit of drag placed on the drum so that it allows the heads to synchronize with the incoming video tracks off the tape, and it is controlled by the control track. But that belt's replaced. I don't see a play belt on here. What we do have is we have, again, our main motor, and we have our caps and shaft here. We have a couple of idler pulleys here, and it drives this main clutch, and this is what drives the tape spools, and it also drives the play through this other belt. And this one's slipping a bit, so this belt here, I probably should put some rubber renew on this one, because this one here does slip, unless it's the clutch. Just going to see whether it's the belt or the clutch that's slipping. It might be the clutch that's just providing it's proper. Should be enough torque, I think. Anyway, let's take a look at the top side and take a look at the idlers, because I'm sure we've got an idler that is slipping on this one, and that's why the take-up spool is not turning. Or there might be another belt on the top side. So let's just try and eject this tape now. I know it's going to get chewed up because I don't think the take-up side is going to work on here, but let's just hit the eject button and see whether the loading ring unloads, which it does. Slowly. We have a tape that's chewed up. It's at the end of it's right at the end of the tape, so it's not a big deal. Bit of damage here, I can spool that back in, no problem. On a beta tape, to spool it in, all you did was just press the little button on the end here and that tape would flip open. By opening up the cassette, you automatically released the reel locks, so you can spool the tape in. It goes on the front side of that little guide there. A couple screws later and we'll take off the front, the top cover for the cassette loader. Just makes it a little easier to see what's going on underneath the deck here and why my supply or take-up spool is not turning. So to make these betas load when there's no cassette in them, you can close down the cassette mechanism and you have to activate one of the switches. Now this little lever here, this is for the record lockout, that's for the record. This one back here is the one that actually starts the threading. So if we do that, we now see that everything's locked in place. That lever is actually moving a little freer now than it was before. It was sticking before, but it's actually now swinging into place. So probably do need to put some lubricant on there because it was sticking, but at this point it looks to be that it's free. But I want to check the play take up. So to do that, I have to depress this. I'm going to have to hold this tape slack sensor out of the way back here. I can press play. I can see that there's nothing happening here. Well, it's starting to turn a bit, so we'll take a look and see where it's slipping. It's either slipping on the top side or it's slipping on the bottom side. But now we can see that it is actually trying to turn. We'll take a look on the bottom to see if it's the pulley that's stopping or whether it's slipping on the top side here. So this one's the play drive idler here. I'm going to release the catches on the back here and press the buttons. See that it is. The belt actually is spinning. You can see the pulley turning. Therefore we know our problem is going to be on the top side. And there goes another airplane. You know, they almost had me fooled into thinking this was real wood, but no, it's not. It's a vinyl veneer on plywood. A wood grain vinyl veneer on plywood with a part number that you could actually order. I don't know if that's the part number for the sticker. It's probably the part number for the sticker. Printed in Japan. You could actually order 3-793-905-21. That would get you the yellow sticker. I don't think that was the part number for the side cover, but anyway, gotta love the old Sonys, right? So we know that the drive belt is turning the take-up reduction pulley from below. If I put this thing back in play, oh, may help if I turn on the power. Okay. Of course, now it's turning. Of course, it's going to turn. Got to look on the bottom again to make sure that this reel is not turning, and whether it's slipping on the bottom, because of course now the thing's turning again. Damn it! Well, now we can see where our problem is. It is this belt that's slipping here. So let's see if we can find a belt for that. I don't think I'm going to have one that's even close to that, but I'll take a look and see whether I've got one that can go on there. Otherwise, I'll have to put some rubber renew on there and try and stick this one up a bit just to make it work. We probably have some. Gotta shut those things up too. It's the same as the SL7200. Where are we here? Back up. These idlers are making some noise. Give them a bit of oil. There we go. Nice and quiet. So I quietened those ones down. Hopefully they didn't throw too much oil around and get it on the other belts, but we quiet those two idlers down a bit. Now to deal with this one that's not turning here. So I'm just going to clean up these belts. I'm just using some isopropyl alcohol. Just this good old stuff here. I'm just going to clean these belts up. See whether I can get enough tension. They're not broken and they're not stretched, they're slippery. So I'm just going to clean the gunge off them. This might dry them up enough just so that I can make this thing work. I'm not really after real long term lasting on this thing because the unit's not going to get used, right? It's not going to get put back into service. It's just more of an exercise to see, can I get this old beast going? And if I can, how is the picture going to look on it when I do get it going? One of my viewers suggested on one of my prior videos that he would like to see something shot with vintage equipment. So I'm toying with the idea of hauling out an old vintage tube camera and an old vintage portable VTR. I haven't decided yet whether I would do it with that SL0340 or whether I would use an SL2000. Probably be a lot easier on the SL2000 as I have a camera that will plug directly into it without having to jerry rig it through adapters and modified audio inputs to get the sound and so forth. So it might work out better if I did it using my SL2000, which I fixed last year, providing that it still works. But I was toying with the idea of shooting a video on old half-inch consumer equipment and editing it in analog. Use the old SL-HF-1000s to edit it together and then transfer the edited tape over to the PC to put up on YouTube. And I'm toying with that idea. That might be something that might look kind of cool for a future project. Guys, let me know in the comments whether you think you'd like to see how something is done in the old way of doing things. And for that matter, if I were to shoot it on old school equipment, maybe even do another video showing the editing process and how tedious it is to edit using the old school gear. It'd be quite an undertaking on my part because I'd have to dig up, well, I've got the two SL-HF-1000 machines still here and I've got all the equipment, but I'd have to basically set up a small studio here to complete that task. Okay, the belts have cleaned up quite nicely. There's lots of torque on this one now, as you can see. Let's see whether we have take-up. So as you can see, when I put it into play now, we have lots of take-up torque. So let's eject the tape. Or do the pretend eject. Let's actually load a tape and see whether that part works. And rewind works. Now if you remember, I recorded some Beta 1 stuff at the very end of this tape. So let's see if it'll actually play anything, and then we can start dealing with the electronic parts of it that have failed, if there are any. We'll hook it up and see what happens. Well, as you can see, oh, it actually is. There's the Beta 1 recording. It actually is playing it. I'm impressed. we have playback on this thing. That's the end of the recording on that tape. Let's get the other Beta 1 tape in and see whether we have a playback from the full tape that I recorded, because this one now looks like it's actually working. So I put in the tape that I recorded on the SL0340, and as you can see, it's playing perfect. Tracking control works. Yeah. Tracking on these is slow because you have to wait for the phase of the drum motor to adjust. So when you make an adjustment on one of these machines, it takes a few seconds before it actually corrects. As I rotate the tracking control, I have to turn it very slowly because the effect is not immediate. But this thing's playing. And one thing I've noticed it's not doing, it's fast forwarding, but it's not rewinding. So my big belt is obviously slipping a bit. So let's get some rubber renew on that one as well, and we'll see whether we can get it to rewind this full tape, because this obviously with the supply spool being full like that, it's going to put a little more it's going to put a more torque requirement on the motor. I can put the cassette lid back on now, as I don't think I need this off anymore. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to just see whether it's the idler that's slipping or whether it's the belt. So let's load it up. We'll see whether it's the idler that's slipping or whether it's the belt. Actually, there's a fair amount of torque there. So why it's not rewinding? It might be the drum is starting to get shined up a bit here. It might be just stiction it's causing, but there is a fair bit of torque. But I'm going to put some rubber renew on the idlers up here and see if that increases the torque. And then we'll do something about the belt below it. So I'm going to do this just by getting some rubber renew on a Q-tip, and we'll put it in rewind mode. I'm just going to get in here and rub it up against the idler if I can. Oh yeah, it's pretty gummed up. Let's see if that'll increase our torque as it dries up. Still going pretty slow in rewind. Again, at this point I don't know whether it's slipping on the bottom. I haven't inspected the belts and see if it's slipping on the bottom side while it's on rewind. That'll be the next thing. I just wanted to make sure that the idlers at the top weren't the problem. So with the bottom up, we can clearly see that it is the belt that's slipping. If I put it into rewind, we're over here, gotta find the right button. Okay, and if I stop or slow down the pulley, the tape spool on the top, you'll see that this pulley is actually slipping. So the problem is this belt is either getting worn out or it got some oil on it from when I think it may have got some oil on it from when I lubed these pulleys, and that's why it's slipping. Let's see whether we can let's see if I can get this thing to clean up a bit. I'll put some rubber renew on here, clean this belt off a bit, maybe put some rosin on it, stick it up a bit. I'm certainly not going to replace the belt. One of these belts, when I ordered a large belt like this for my 3/4 inch machine, which I had no choice but replacing because the belt was melted, and one of these big belts ended up costing me about $60 for a belt. They are these large belts, and anybody who repairs reel-to-reel machines will agree with me here. These large belts are just crazy expensive. So for a machine that's not going to really be used other than for this demonstration, I'm not going to spend a lot of money trying to make it perfect. I just want it to work good enough for the demonstration. So we get some rubber renew here. We'll just put some of that on the belt, and that hopefully will clean off any oil and make it a little more sticky. Give us a little more tension for the time being. Oops, I don't want to knock off any other belts while it's running. That could be a disaster. Here's something that somebody else pointed out to me in one of the other videos. This is what's called a cross point. It's a Japanese version of a Phillips screw, but it is not a Phillips screw. It's called a cross point screw. How you can identify it is there's a little there's a little dot on there. So even though a Phillips screwdriver will fit it, a Phillips screwdriver is not a perfect fit. Sony did have, used to have one, I don't know what happened to it, but I had one here for a while that was actually a cross point screwdriver that fit these screws properly. As you can see, this is another Phillips one here, and it'll fit, but it doesn't fit it properly. There's a little bit of play. I did have a cross point screwdriver one time, a proper one that Sony had issued, had a wooden handle, I think it had about a 12-inch shank on it, and it was had a wooden handle, and it was a proper, and it said Sony Engineering, and we used to call it the engineering screwdriver, but it was actually a proper Japanese cross point screwdriver from Japan. Actually, when I put this thing into rewind, there's quite a bit of tension on here. What it is the tape is sticking. We have a stick shin problem on this thing here. Because when I put it into rewind, there's actually a fair bit of tension on this tape, but it's sticking to the drum. So let's take this drum apart, and we'll use the Comet Cleanser trick on this thing. I'll show you how we take the shine off on this. And I'm not going to take the head disc off because I don't have an eccentricity gauge to reset it. So I'm just going to take the upper half of the drum off, and we're going to remove this shine. You see the shine on the top here? The shine here that's from the tape. And it's polished it up, and it makes the drum become kind of sticky. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the top surface of the drum so that I know where it came from. So we're just going to put a scratch. I'm going to scratch it with here. I'm going to scratch it like that and like that. That way I know the alignment of the drum so that I can put it back on, and then we'll just remove the screws that hold the upper portion of the drum in place. And there's one more screw. It's an Allen screw, I believe, in the back here. There's two of them. I got to get my Allen screw kit. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to remove that upper drum like I wanted to because I don't have the right size Allen key for it. This is a metric set, but they're a non-standard metric. I've got a 3mm and I've got a 4mm. The 3mm is too small and the 4mm is too large. It's a 3.5mm. That was a trick that Sony used to do. This mean trick. Let's see if I can just get in around the drum here. I'm just going to try and polish this up with a bit of sandpaper just to take some of the shine off of it, to make it a little less sticky so that the tape can rewind on this unit. It's looking for a small #1 Phillips to take off this guide piece here. We'll just remove the screws that hold the tape tensioners and guide in place. You'll see what I mean when I say tape tensioners. There's a couple little springs that actually ride through some slots that are used to push the tape down. Lift this piece out and lift these two little, those fit through those slots. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some fine sandpaper. I'm going to make sure my video heads obviously are away, so I'm not going to get any debris or anything on there. I'm just going to take off some of the shine. You can see this shine that's going around the drum here. I think this is what's causing my my tape to stick. Now normally what we would do is we would take this top piece off and we would just use some Comet Cleanser on a wet rag and remove the shine. The problem being is that that'll put moisture in there, and I can't obviously put water on there. I can't use wet Comet Cleanser with the whole drum together. It'll get all over the place. So I'm just going to take some fine, very very fine sandpaper and just try to remove this little bit of an edge here, and see if I can roughen that up enough just so that the tape won't stick to it. So I have to be careful that my video heads aren't anywhere around while I'm working on this, so I'll make sure the head is way over here. But I'll just take a little piece of grit and we'll just take some of that shine off. Scrub that down a little bit just to roughen up that surface just enough to allow the tape to not stick to it. Do it all the way around where that shine is. And then being careful as to not touch the actual rotating part of the head disc, because I don't want to scratch that. I just want to try and remove some of the shine from the upper portion of the drum. I'm going to remove the black tape guide here so that I can get into move that out of the way just so I can get in here. Just try and get this last little bit of shine that's off of here. There's not much, so I just have to kind of try to clean this up just a bit. Ever so lightly. I'm not putting any pressure at all on this. I'm just ever so lightly, I'm just touching it. That's what makes the tape stick. Okay, now that that is cleared away, we'll try putting the guide back in place, and we'll just see how our rewind is. See whether we've made an improvement. Oops. Try this old tape first, see how it rewinds. Looks like it's rewinding okay. Also, what we'll do is we'll give the transport a good cleaning while we're at it before we put everything back together. Clean the drum. Actually, a fair bit of dirt coming off the drum and a fair bit of dirt coming off the guides. We'll just do the audio heads in behind here as well. So our audio heads are in behind here. And rollers. These machines certainly were not the easiest to get at to clean, that's for sure. Clean all the parts that the tape touches. Including the pinch roller, and it is really dirty. You see what I mean? And let's see if we have made any difference at all. Threaded up a lot faster to begin with. I would say that that tape is probably rewinding okay. Now if I want to try and make my tracking centered as per this tape, because the tracking on this is not perfect. It's out of alignment just due to the fact that these screws here were not tight. To adjust our centering, we loosen off the 3 adjustment screws. And ideally we want to hook up a scope to this, so let's do that. Our scope is connected to this test point over at the back. Pin number 1 is our trigger, pin number 3 is our RF. If I go over and show you the scope, you'll see that our RF is not very good. If I adjust the tracking control, you'll see that the RF will come up. Now, I want to try and get my RF as good as I can in the center of the control, because I'm going to use this tape that I recorded on the SL7300. I'll use that as my reference, just because I don't have a Beta 1 reference tape. So that's as close as I've got to being what I would consider to be relatively close. So I've loosened off the adjustment screws here, and I'm just going to slide. There's a little notch right down here. I'm just going to slide this back and forth. This changes the position of the audio control head. As you can see, I can slide that. That slides this whole lower bracket, and this will change my alignment. And as you can see, I've now brought the RF relatively flat at the center position of the tracking control. So now I can tighten down the screws again. So now I'll tighten down my screws. Now my tracking is good. And as you can see, we have a nice picture. Now, for those of you wanting to see what the quality of a Beta 1 tape looks like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture a portion of this tape, and I'll cut it in so you can actually see what the quality of Beta 1 looks like. You may have noticed that I have not placed the tape springs in yet. It'll work without it, but we'll put these back in just for the heck of it. So they just go in there like that, and then there's a couple screws that I have to put in to hold the bracket in place. All therefore is to stop the tape from riding up the drum, typically during rewind. Because as the drum gets worn and you get that shine that I took off with and this other guide here, this guard is just to ensure that the tape threads properly and doesn't get stuck. So static electricity doesn't cause it to, when it's threading, so it doesn't get looped over the drum. That's what that is. That's a static electricity guard. So this little white plastic guard here, its only job is to make sure that the tape, when it's threading, doesn't loop over the drum. And that's its only job. It doesn't have anything else to do other than ensure that the tape goes where it's supposed to during the threading cycle. Just tighten those down a bit. Okay, we're back in play. And as you can see on the monitor, the picture is spotless, it's flawless, it's excellent. It's as good as any half-inch analog format ever was, actually. Well, maybe the exception of the super high band Beta 1, which delivered a better picture. But as I said, what I'm going to do is I'll capture a portion of this tape and we'll cut it in so you can see what Beta 1 quality looks like direct, rather than shoot it off the monitor, which obviously isn't going to look as good as how it looks. So as you can see from the scope, our RF envelope is nice and flat. As I turn the tracking control to the left, our RF envelope drops back to center and to the right. So we've maximized our tracking, which is exactly what we wanted to do. This machine has a mechanical pause control. All this does is pull the pinch roller away from the capstan mechanically, but you do not get a picture. When you pause it, you have nothing. As you probably noticed from this machine, it does have a tuner, but it does not have a timer. So there was no way to make recordings of TV shows natively with this machine, and they actually sold a standalone timer, a mechanical timer, which was essentially an old mechanical flip clock that was not very accurate. So if you set it for 7 o'clock, well, it might come on at 5 to 7, or it might come on at 5 after 7, but it was by no means accurate. It's kind of an afterthought. So back in the early days of home video recording, you basically had to be there to start it up yourself. Now, I want to see if this thing records. So let me grab a tape that I can record on. We'll hook this thing up to my house cable and see whether I can actually make a recording on it. Remember that this beast only has an analog crank tuner in it, and my house cable system that I've got a couple channels from my cable box, and I've got my cameras, and I've got my media player that plays my music channels throughout the house. In order to get a picture on this thing, you actually have to put it in record. You have to place the record button in the record mode, and then it'll pass the signal through to the output so we can tune the channel in. So for example, if I want my security camera, which is channel 9, this tuner looks like it could use it. Oh, wait a minute, just the fine tuning is off, that's all. I think. Yeah, just the fine tuning is off. Those sparklies are just the cable going to the TV is not tight. It's fine on the other monitor up here. But if I want to record something, I'll record that. Jesse Cook's playing on my media player. If I want to record it, I just press both buttons together, and it's now making a recording. We'll let this here record for a couple minutes here, and we'll play it back and see how it looks. Not bad for a 40-year-old machine that really only needed to have one belt replaced in it, and cleaned up, some cleaning done to the rest of the mechanism, and a little bit of a alignment for the audio control head. Okay, we've been recording for a few minutes. We can stop it, rewind. Yeah, I know the rewind's a little slow. It's still a little slow, but it gets there. Takes us a few seconds to get rewound. Well, on playback, it's not good. We have a noisy picture on playback, and looking at the RF from the heads, it looks like there's only output from one of the heads is there. Rewind that again. I only played it back for a few seconds. I only recorded for a minute there. So let's rewind it back to the beginning here. It looks like we have an RF problem from one of the heads. In fact, both of them look to be a bit low. So let's check our record level and see what our record level looks like. We're just going to adjust the record current control here a little bit, and I'm not scoping this or anything. I'm just eyeballing this to see whether it makes a difference and see whether we've got any difference on our playback. There we go. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. So we'll just rewind the tape, and we'll just adjust the current level a little bit again. Tweak it a little bit more. Put on record, make another test recording. I don't have any manuals for this thing, so I don't know what my levels are supposed to be, so I'm just kind of guessing, because if I had a manual, it would tell me what my voltage should be. I could be able to scope a test point, and I could adjust it right to the exact voltage. I don't have a service manual for this, so I don't know what it's supposed to be, so there's no point in even measuring it. I'll do some eyeball testing and see how it looks. That's about all I can do. This is a 40-year-old machine, so you know, I'm just amazed that it actually still works. As you can see, we're probably a little low on our levels here still, but we'll try another adjustment and just see if it improves. It's all about trying to find a good level. So we made one more adjustment, and I'm going to say that is probably acceptable. This is not a new tape. This is an exceptionally old tape that I'm recording this onto, full of dropouts. This is a tape that's been sitting in my garage for forever, but looks like we've got our levels pretty good now. It's not bad. It's certainly, I mean, this machine wasn't the, you know, this was the early machines. Back in the day, it probably did record a little better picture than it does now, but the fact that this is all original, these are the original heads on this machine. They've never been changed because the paint seal was still on here when I removed it earlier. Paint seal was cracked on the control head, so that's been played with in the past. But we'll just try a little bit more on the record current. Whoops. Try another one here, another recording, and just see how this one looks, and then I'll have to say that that's probably as good as this machine's going to be, because actually it's not bad at all. There's the recording. We'll try playing this back. Now you see I went a little too far on the control there, so I'm going to go back where I was. It's just kind of hit and miss, right? We'll try another one and see if I can get it back where it was when I made the last recording, which was good, which was better than that. So here we go. Here's our next recording. This is as good as I think I'm going to get it. It looks actually pretty good. Tracking control is in the middle, and off to the side, and bring the tracking control back. That's some dropouts on the tape there. Those are tape dropouts. Looks like this thing is ready to go back together and go back into storage. I'll show you guys the transport on how this one loads. It's a little different than some of the other beta machines you've seen. Just going to put the camera overhead so you can get a good look at the threading on this unit. So we'll start it with no tape in the machine. Tape goes in. Real simple. As you notice, there's no guides all mounted along the loading ring as on the later machines where they actually had multiple posts to hold the tape. This has got one post that locks into place. It swings on this swing arm, and there's the next place the tape is contacted is way down here, and then there's a third pin over here, and that's it. There's just the 3 pins, and then of course the back tension arm that swings back. So when I eject, you notice what happens there, right? The loading arm here, this is actually the last of the loading arms. It becomes the first because of this pivot arm down here. That's the original beta loading design. I think that's pretty much it. The only thing I need to do now is to show you guys what the quality of beta 1 looks like, which we will show you next. You'll see what the actual recording from a beta 1 tape looks like. So to show you the quality, I'm just going to load this time-lapse film that I recorded in beta 1. This is the tape I'm going to play, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mini DV deck and I'm going to plug it into the video output on the back of here, and I'm going to record this from this deck onto mini DV, and then we'll take that recording and import that into the computer.